U.S. President Donald Trump is threatening 100% tariffs on Canadian goods if the federal government goes through with a new trade deal with China.
President Donald Trump has threatened 100% tariffs on Canadian goods if Ottawa moves ahead with a trade deal with China.
Cargo routes don't change overnight. Global shipping giants do not pivot on impulse. But sometimes one quiet decision flips the entire board. 3 weeks ago, Canada approved a $25 million investment in Halifax. Not a study, not a task force, real funding. Within days, construction crews were on site. Plans moved straight into action. A hydrogen production facility, electric rail locomotives, alternative fuel vessel refueling, all already underway, while major American ports remain buried in feasibility reviews and environmental paperwork. Transport Minister Anita Anand announced the funding, and Halifax wasted no time. This is now set to become North America's first hydrogen refueling port, arriving years ahead of competitors like New York, Boston, and Virginia. The timing could not be sharper. In 2026, European shipping companies face mandatory carbon reporting. That means they need ports equipped for hydrogen and clean energy fast. Halifax is building exactly what they require. Meanwhile, U.S. ports are still organizing meetings about what might happen someday. Every delay carries consequences. European carriers are already lining up routes through the Hamburg to Halifax Green Corridor. Once those contracts are signed, that market share does not come back. Jobs follow cargo. Infrastructure shapes trade. And a $25 million decision is now threatening decades of American port dominance. Today's video breaks down how Halifax pulled this off, why hydrogen and electric rail give Canada an edge the U.S. cannot quickly replicate, how European shipping companies are reshaping their networks, and how Trump's tariff chaos is speeding up the shift away from American ports. So how did one Canadian city leap ahead of an entire country in 3 weeks? And what happens when global shipping chooses Halifax over the United States? Canada is not making a symbolic move. It is building real infrastructure on real docks with real money, and it is doing it faster than anyone on the American East Coast. At the center of this shift sits the Halifax to Hamburg Green Shipping Corridor, a direct zero-emission trade route linking Canada with Germany, and by extension, the entire European manufacturing engine. This corridor changes how ships cross the Atlantic. Vessels powered by hydrogen, ammonia, or other alternative fuels will soon be able to refuel in Halifax, turning green transatlantic shipping from an idea into a working commercial system. The project already carries a $22.5 million investment that funds immediate construction of a hydrogen production facility at the port. That fuel will be generated locally using Nova Scotia's hydroelectric power, then stored on-site, with bunkering equipment installed to refuel ships quickly without slowing port operations. Hamburg is Europe's second-largest container port and Germany's primary gateway for North American trade. Automotive components, industrial machinery, chemicals, and manufactured goods all move through Hamburg on their way across the Atlantic. Starting in 2026, those shipments will fall under strict European Union carbon reporting rules. Every container will carry an emissions footprint. Every shipping decision will come with financial consequences. That puts exporters in a bind. Companies moving cargo between Hamburg and North America now face a clear choice: route through United States ports on diesel-powered ships and pay carbon penalties, or route through Halifax on hydrogen-powered vessels and claim carbon neutrality. The cost gap is not dramatic today, but it widens every year as European emissions regulations tighten and carbon pricing increases. Halifax is betting that green shipping becomes mandatory, not optional, and it is building for that future now, while American ports remain stuck in planning mode. For New York, Boston, Charleston, Savannah, and Virginia, this creates a serious problem. Hydrogen refueling infrastructure does not appear overnight. It requires years of regulatory approvals, environmental reviews, safety certifications, and coordination across multiple levels of government. United States maritime regulations were never designed for alternative fuel vessels. The Port of New York and New Jersey, which handles roughly 9.4 million containers each year and stands as the busiest port on the East Coast, currently has no hydrogen infrastructure no alternative fuel refueling, and no construction timeline. The Port Authority talks about sustainability in press releases, but funding commitments and building schedules remain absent. Virginia tells the same story, Savannah tells the same story, Charleston tells the same story, plenty of environmental messaging, zero hydrogen refueling systems under construction. Halifax does not face those constraints. Canadian maritime regulations already accommodate alternative fuels. Nova Scotia's provincial government backs the project. The Halifax Port Authority controls terminal development directly, without competing jurisdictions slowing progress. There is no maze of overlapping agencies fighting for authority. The result is straightforward. Halifax expects operational hydrogen refueling by late 2026 or early 2027. American ports will still be conducting feasibility studies. That creates a permanent first-mover advantage. Shipping companies that establish Hamburg to Halifax green corridors will continue routing cargo through Halifax for years, even if United States ports eventually build similar infrastructure. Supply chains do not reset easily once they lock into place. Logistics networks form around reliability, and once those networks are established, they rarely reverse course. The investment goes beyond ships. The same funding package includes an electric rail locomotive and incentive programs designed to shift freight from trucks to rail. That solves one of Halifax's biggest geographic challenges. The port sits far from major population centers. Toronto lies about 1,500 kilometers away. Chicago sits roughly 2,000 kilometers inland. Cargo arriving in Halifax must move efficiently across long distances to reach customers. Canadian National Railway connects Halifax directly to the entire North American rail network. With electric locomotives and rail incentives in place, shippers gain the ability to claim zero-emission delivery from Hamburg to Chicago via Halifax. That is something American ports cannot offer. New York and Virginia have strong rail connections, but those lines run on diesel. Charleston and Savannah operate the same way. There is no electric rail infrastructure linking those ports to inland distribution hubs. For European manufacturers shipping to North American buyers, the calculation becomes simple. Route through Halifax with electric rail to Chicago and maintain carbon-neutral delivery, or route through New York with diesel rail to Chicago and absorb carbon reporting penalties. The cost difference starts modest, then grows year after year as emissions taxes rise and corporate sustainability reporting becomes mandatory. Halifax is positioning itself for that future, while American ports remain anchored to diesel-dependent systems. European cargo enters North America through a Canadian port, travels on zero-emission ships and electric rail, avoids American tariffs, and bypasses United States political volatility entirely. In 2024, Canadian ports handled approximately 40 million containers across Vancouver, Montreal, Halifax, and smaller terminals. By comparison, New York, Virginia, and Savannah alone processed roughly 40 million containers on the American East Coast. The volumes still favor the United States, but the growth trajectory tells a different story. Vancouver container traffic climbed 30% over the past 5 years as Asian shippers avoided West Coast congestion and labor disputes. Halifax now stands positioned to replicate that growth by attracting European companies uneasy about American trade instability. Green shipping infrastructure accelerates the shift. Every European company facing emissions reporting requirements gains incentive to avoid American ports. Every shipper concerned about tariff threats gains incentive to route through Canada. Halifax is building the systems to support that migration, and it is doing it while competitors hesitate. Trump's tariff chaos opened the door. European shipping executives watched tariffs imposed on Canadian goods, heard threats about economic annexation, and saw trade relationships swing with presidential announcements. Those companies depend on predictability. They require stable supply chains that do not hinge on political mood swings. Halifax offers that stability. Canada provides consistent regulation, reliable governance, and no sudden tariff reversals.